And I'm so chuffed to see you today, Phillipa. Or Pip, you allowed me to call you Pip. So the first person in Australia to introduce laughter yoga to the country. So welcome, Phillipa Challis.
Thank you, Lotte. I'm just delighted to be invited to come and have a chat with you. I feel quite special.
Oh, you are special, and because you've been laughing so long, and it's not the only thing that makes you special, it's your whole life story and everything. But you know what, the first thing I really wanted to ask you about, because it's come up on a couple of occasions in conversations with other people, about what was your first experience of laughter yoga and how was that?
My first experience was back in the 90s. It was the late 90s, 96, 97. And a colleague from Adelaide introduced me to the laughter yoga. Now, at that stage, our association had been, because we're both professional speakers traveling the globe, talking about different topics. And my topic is your number one asset is you. And so it was a wonderful thing when he said, come along and I'll show you how you can make yourself even better. So off I went to a laughter session, and I thought it was the most stupid thing I'd ever seen. What is he on about? I cannot comprehend, because my background was at that stage in corporate. So here am I, and you've got to go back to the period of the suit with the beautiful blouse, the shoulder pads, the curls, the hair, big hair, the whole tragedies you can imagine left over from the 80s.
Yeah.
And here I was going somewhere where everyone was being silly, childlike. And I thought, what is this at a corporate event? Because he was on the speaking program as I was later in the afternoon. And oh, I said, that was a bit different. He said, oh, I told you you'd like it, because I'm told I've got a natural laugh.
Did you like it though?
Because I was brought up in a family where laughter was part of our day. It was everything that we did. So I got introduced to the laughter, and he said, come along while you're over here. So I'm in Victoria, he's over in South Australia. And I saw him do a few more, and I thought, this is the most, I don't know. But I did observe how everybody was quite relaxed. Came back to Victoria, and that would have been the end of the year. And suddenly I get a phone call, and he says to me, can you help me, please? I'm going to be in a magazine, two of the national magazines for women, and they're doing an article on laughter yoga. And I said, oh, right. If you want, I'm not a yoga exponent, but you know. He said, well, I think you need to be there involved, because I'm going to say for anyone that rings up, please ring Phillipa Challis and she'll help you with the laughter. Well, I didn't know anything about it at this stage. Well, Lotte, the story goes like this. February of that year was when the edition of the magazines came out. And yes, if you want a club, a laughter yoga club in Victoria, ring Phillipa Challis. I didn't know the first thing. I had to madly read up and see what I could find, and couldn't find very much.
And I suppose the book hadn't come out yet either, had it?
Exactly. I knew what the laughter therapy was and how it worked. And I tell people this, and they're quite blown away. From February of 2001 until Christmas, I logged all the calls I got. Now, this would come about, just the phone calls, after I had been speaking through my business at a conference, or doing some staff training in a business association, school, whatever it might have been. And when I did all that, I looked at it. It wasn't the people talking to me after I came off the stage. It wasn't that day was faxes back in those days. You remember fax?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
The old machines, and emails, but just the phone calls from the February to the December. Do you want to hazard a guess how many I got? No one knew about laughter yoga or what it was at that stage.
Okay, from February to December. What could you get? What, a few hundred?
Yes, 500.
Oh, wow.
500.
That's a bit more
and
than
I thought. Oh, there must be something in this. So I decided that I should get trained.
Yeah.
I flew up to Sydney in New South Wales, and I was trained by a lovely Dr. Yip, who had been in America. She knew Professor Lee Burke. She knew of Steve Wilson, all the people that were starting to pioneer laughter yoga.
Okay.
So I did the training, and then I met up with someone from Queensland, someone from New South Wales, and my friend who brought me into the business in South Australia. And we talked about forming clubs for laughter yoga. It was by then we knew about Dr. Madan Kataria, we knew what the concept was. And I thought, oh, can I do that? Well, I got my bit of training, which was very little, I can assure you, other than what I did at that stage. And I came back to Victoria.
It wasn't structured the way it is now, was it? It was like more like improvised training in some way, wasn't it? Or you would be mentored, and that was pretty much the training you got. Also, it wasn't like now.
I wish I'd had that. Because of my background as a professional speaker and a trainer lecturing, I had an idea how to work it. And I do laugh a lot. And friends would often ring me up and say, look, I'm just ringing up because I need a good laugh. And that's what my life was. And I did a lot of emceeing, and I'd again use and incorporate laughter into it. Or when I did training, you know, you do an evaluation when you're doing some professional development for staff.
Yeah.
They've got all these big sheets of that. And it always, I learned so much in my class. I've never laughed so much. No, they didn't. It's just that they had fun doing it. And I then decided that I had to meet Dr. Kataria. So I approached him and said, would you come to Australia? He said, well, I've been there once before to South Australia. I said, no, down to Victoria. And that was fine. And what we did is that we had a wonderful time in Melbourne, in Australia, when he came out and he trained me, and I in turn started to train people, read everything I could, and people didn't know the first thing about it. And when I went and did no, and I remember being in Melbourne at one of our town hall in those days had a beautiful grassed area, and there was me in front of the TV cameras doing all this laughter that I really knew nothing about. And you ready for this? I'm still in the pearls and the jacket. Well, that's all I knew how to dress when I was presenting.
But the thing is, you know, you got to dress for your audience, don't you? So it doesn't work if you go in front of corporate business people in a flower power top or you know, tie-dye t-shirt or so. It doesn't work, does it?
No, it doesn't. So I then started to form a club. So I formed the Geelong Club, which is where I live. For people overseas, if they look on the map,
behind you.
1 hour. Pardon? Yes, Laughter Club's Geelong. Thank you. And there's Dr. Kataria up there in the picture.
Oh yeah.
And so we started the Laughter Club of Geelong in July 2002, the very first laughter club that was formal. There had been one in New South Wales, in Sydney, Queensland, in Brisbane, and over in South Australia in Adelaide. And a month after I opened up, another couple, and I was training everybody. So I was learning from the Sydney and Queensland laughter leaders who trained me, and then I started. And Lotte, I've lost track now. I've trained hundreds of people, which is fantastic.
Wow, yeah.
And, you know, I'm passionate about spreading the happy-demic of laughter.
Did they did they go on to starting laughter clubs as well then, or did they just?
Yes.
Yeah,
they did.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And that was one of the conditions when I trained them, that they would. And because I was so keen to see it done professionally, every time someone opened a club, I'd go and visit on their first. Now, I've got to tell you, an hour up to Melbourne, and then some of them were an hour away, 2 hours away, 4 hours away. And I was out there spreading the happy-demic of laughter.
Oh,
it was
fantastic.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
exhausting,
fantastic.
But wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know what? That's one of the things that often, I think now it's a little bit, it's that thing about getting around to the laughter clubs when people start laughter clubs, isn't it? Because I've always wanted to go to the laughter clubs that started, but it's never really been happening for me in a big way. I have later on, you know, on occasions gone to some of the laughter clubs, But it should be the teacher's duty, shouldn't it, to go to the Laughter Club and be there for the launch or so. I'd love to do that with all my
If I can, I do.
Yeah.
I think it's really important.
Yeah.
And look, I never had the joy of it because it was the way I did it, and I learned on the job, as they say, on the run.
Yeah.
But I'd always say to people, you know, get a lanyard when you go to a convention, that you simply take one of the cords. Now, this is a black one, but you put it around your neck, and it's usually got the clear plastic.
Yeah.
And what I tell people to do is, on the front of that little piece of plastic, on the card itself, you have your name.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Then on the back, you write down all the laughs that you're going to do. Because how often, when I first started, I'd stand there and think, oh gosh, did I just do that last laugh? Oh yes. What was I going to do? And I'd think, I don't know any laughs. And I remember one of my big corporates, I'm standing on a stage, there's 600 people, and we're doing laughs, and I thought, oh God, I've no idea what I'm going to do next. So I said, oh, I can't think what I was going to do next. I don't know what it's all about, laugh. Oh, you know, and we all did that. Oh, I'm not silly. I forgot what I was going to say next. But I made it into a story that was what they could do in their situation, not that I'd forgotten when I had.
And you know what? That is perfectly okay as well, isn't it? To kind of just lose track of where you are and so on. And it's something I not used to do a lot, but I've done on a few occasions, especially in the start, where I thought, oh, well, where was I? And then just stop and pause and just look around and just start laughing. And people are like, what is happening now? And then they start laughing because laughing is infectious. And then you can kind of think, well, I always thought I could kind of get myself back to where I was. But when you laugh, you forget thinking, don't you? So it's kind of like, but I used to write the details or the points and exercise it on my hand, but it wasn't great because if you're a little bit nervous and your hands become a little bit clammy or so, it goes away.
Lotte, let me tell you about one of the first times I was on television, and I've learned there are certain laughs you don't do on television. I would never do the monkey laugh because that's when you're having so much fun, and I think, God, this is stupid. What an idiot is she? So that's never one I do. And this one, I was really keen, and I'd planned it out, and the interview's going well. It was a whole 15-minute segment, and I was really quite nervous, but I didn't let on. And I said, now the next laugh we'll do is the lion laugh. And I bring my hands up to do the lion laugh, and guess what? I've written it on here. And the camera zoomed in on it, you know, straight in. Never do that again.
That is so funny though.
and one of our laughter leaders in Victoria, Damien, who runs the St Kilda Club, his great thing was he was doing the hand bit and he was right. Trouble is that he wrote it in indelible stuff and it stayed on his hand for 6 weeks. And I think it was something like a straitjacket laugh or something. Oh, but it's been wonderful. We then formed Laughter Clubs Victoria, which is a formal umbrella which the community clubs come under.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it's like for you over there, but each time we're out in public, we must have public liability and professional indemnity. Well, our clubs, we don't charge. They're totally...
You know, it's we also in the UK and in many countries in Europe and so on, we do need to have the public liability and professional indemnity insurance. And, you know, even in countries where it's not a requirement, I still recommend it because we're working with people, aren't we? We're working with people and anything can happen, yeah. The thing is when laughter clubs are indoor and we have to cover our costs for venues and so on, it's okay to charge a little bit because it shouldn't be out of pocket. And you know, if you're out of pocket every time you go to a laughter club, then it kind of becomes a chore, doesn't it? And it's not fun anymore because it's like, I'm never going to cover my costs and so on. So, and we are doing the voluntary work, so it's okay to charge a little bit. But I know that if people are doing it outdoors, they are not having those costs, so they may do it for free.
Yes.
And that's the whole idea of it, isn't it? If we can do it for free, great.
Yeah.
When I first started the Laughter Club in St Albans, I actually ran it from home, so I didn't have any costs. Also, I did have refreshments, but you know what, I had that in the house anyway. But I used to have a charity, and they would just donate into their charity box. And one of the things I heard was that when people pay for it, they value it more. And that's why I just started having that charity box. If they didn't pay, that was fine as well, because it was a free Laughter Club at that time. So, but again, you know, it's what suits, isn't it? So how many people do you have coming to the Laughter Club normally?
Oh, look, mine, I always say, is somewhere between 8 and 18 on any given Saturday. We meet every Saturday, 9 o'clock in the morning, outdoors, fabulous venue. Where we live in Geelong is on the bay, so we've got the bay to look at it. And we've been blessed over the years, 9 o'clock in the morning, not to have rain. And the half dozen times we've had rain, because I've got some of my foundation members still. And we're big kids. And I love when it rains, just going out and laughing in the rain. It's so good. And because my hair curls, I'm okay.
It is just rain, isn't it? It's good for the planet, and it's good for us to get a little bit of fresh rain.
And you were saying about the insurance, you know, it's a small thing, but you need to understand that each country, each location have different things. And though we're doing them in public, in the grounds of the city of Greater Geelong, and they would have their insurance, we still have to have ours on top. So whilst we're free, we have a donation box. And if someone new comes, I say, please, whatever you'd like to put into the donation box. And occasionally we'll get some wonderful person that puts in folding money. We get quite excited because we have to pay. But it's not an issue. It really isn't. And the clubs that have stayed together. But the thing is also
your costs of insurance and so on. It's also, the insurance is also showing you're professional about what you're doing and so on. And you know, if you do want to work with corporate businesses or organizations or any type of professional organization, it's the right thing to do anyway. And I just think it would be, with everything that goes on and people looking to blame and so on in many cases when something goes wrong, that it's the right thing to do. And it's the
Lottie, my own club, we've been blessed. We have, until the coronavirus lockdown in March of this year, up until then, we used to say with pride, we had never, ever missed a Saturday morning. So it might have been on Christmas Day or New Year's Day or Easter Saturday, one of our members would always be there just in case someone came in. Look, we've only had 2 or 3 on those occasions, but for those 2 or 3 people, it was important.
Makes a difference no matter how many people, doesn't it? And so do you have to have permission from the park you're running the session?
Yes.
No. Okay.
Most areas do. And then what happens, they will all have their own community activities on the website. And so that means that we get a mention as to what's available. And tourists, we have a lot of tourists come to our area. I'm speaking only of my club, and I think of the 40 odd clubs that we have in Victoria. Over the years, we've had more. Some have stayed, some have moved on. All of them have their own way of doing it and promoting it. But we have activities too.
But that's the beauty of it as well, isn't it? That no matter how many people are in an area, because we're all different in our approach and how we market ourselves and you know, how we do it, how we relate to people, we're going to attract different people, and you know, there are going to be enough people for all of us, isn't it?
That's right. And a good leader, and I think everyone that I've trained, fortunately, has been of that caliber, they will be aware of what is happening whenever they've got a different demographic. For instance, one of the clubs had somebody come along regularly who was in a wheelchair. And she said, I don't know what to do. The leader was really beside herself. I said, it's not an issue. You simply work out a laugh that's going to be able to do it. And if you want to do an activity, I used to do, my favourite was a wheelbarrow laugh. You know, in the garden, we want to put all the flowers into the garden that we're going to plant. So you've got them in the wheelbarrow and you've got to push it along. So someone could push the person in a wheelchair and include them. And that's what a good leader will do.
But even the normal laughter exercise, we would still include people in, you know, whether they're seated or not, it doesn't really matter. It's all inclusive, and that's what I love about it. So, yeah. My
line is always that it's for all ages and all abilities.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And some of the clubs have got an older bracket, some of them have got middle age. We don't get younger ones so much, I found. I don't know what it's like over there in London, but here, the ones that I'm aware of, they don't have the 20 to 30 sometimes because they think it's a bit silly, which it is, and I love.
Do you know, there are, yeah, it's growing. I would say it's definitely growing that people in their 20s and 30s are more and more finding laughter yoga, which is fantastic, because it has been like moving on from late 30s up to 60s, mid 60s, and so on. Is where the majority of people who come to laughter yoga and come to train as well have been then the odd ones outside of that range, of course. Yeah, I don't mean they're odd, but the few.
And it's interesting, isn't it? When you have a male leader for the group, again, the demographics change. It's really quite interesting.
But it's a different dynamic as well. I recently I've been running all sorts of workshops, and the past couple of years, for many years, I used to, when people asked about hen parties, for example, I used to pass it on to people I knew were really good at that. And then it really grew, and I thought, okay, let me just do a few and see how it goes. Yeah. And then last year I had my first stag do that. So it was all guys around the 30-year mark coming from Norway to London to have their stag event. Yeah. So I went there with Mel, who I worked with in training and workshops and so on. And we went there together to run this all men workshop. And it's a totally different dynamic when it's men, and even when it's men running it, I imagine as well. Yeah. But it's fun, and it's what makes laughter yoga so all inclusive that anyone can do it. It doesn't matter who you are. Yeah.
And over the last few years, I've seen, as people are more accepting of it as being another modality with their health, and all the allied health people are becoming aware. I now have for my own club a flyer that I will go and put in chiropractors, go and put into remedial masseur places. Somebody the other day who is very involved in herbal treatment, she was delighted, knew nothing about it, and said, oh, how can I do that? And it was so good when people actually have heard about it. Whereas the first time I went on television, I can still remember all the people on the desk sort of sat there like this and said, you know, what is it? You're a comedian? No. How do you do it? No. And well, what's it all about? Possibly because of my own style and because of the work I was doing in the corporates, introducing them to wellbeing programs using the laughter. I did get a lot of television coverage, and with my speaking, moving around. And every presentation I do, Lotte, doesn't matter what the topic is. If I'm doing something like in sales for as I did for a hotel, they wanted some team building for their sales team because they really just weren't working together. And as you know, it brings people together. It's an ego level. It's just so wonderful, apart from all the health benefits. And when I was doing that, it spread the word, and I found that when I was doing those platforms, people got to know about it. So as we got more television, we got coverage, we got more media coverage, and the research that's been done is fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. You know, you got some really good studies that have come out of Australia and of course around the world, yes. But I just think localized research is so important. You know, we have a few things that's come out of the UK, but still, you know, we really need a lot more, because it's great to hear from other countries and so on, and we can kind of reflect on that, but local research is so important.
Well, 10 years ago, or it might be 12 now, I was involved with our university here, and we did a study with the psych nurses, and we were doing it as to how people responded. Unfortunately, it was not given traction because the dean said it was the most nonsensical thing he'd ever done. He's a bit of a stuffy person. Loved to have got near him and made him laugh. So they didn't publish it, unfortunately, and I really regret it, and I lost track with them because it would have been so valuable. A lot of people who come to a number of clubs have been recommended by some of the psych centres, and to see the change. Now, I mentioned the laugh before, the lion laugh, and I always say to people, now put your hands up, put them near your ears, but not in your ears, turn your hands into claws, and lions have big, wide open eyes. And now I want you to do the lion laugh, which is really easy. You're going to put your tongue out and try and touch your chin. Now, lovely. Very good, yay. And I had a woman come along from the recommendation of her doctor, and she would come to it. And when we do the lion laugh, the first time I can still remember the hands up, the eyes are sort of, what the hell am I doing? And the tongue came out and she went, and over the years, the tongue got, I was thrilled because it took her about 4 years. But in the end, the tongue would go out. She could almost touch the chin. She got right into it. And the interesting thing is we didn't see her at the club anymore. So I felt as if I'd had a blessing to have the opportunity to help her move through what was happening in her life and not needing us anymore.
Do you know what? That's the wonderful thing, isn't it? That sometimes we're with people on the way through whatever they need to go through, and sometimes we just never know. But when we hear that odd comment once in a while, where I should stop saying odd, shouldn't I? When we hear that comment once in a while, where people say, "Oh, I came to your session years ago, and this is what happened." It's like, wow, this is why we're doing it, isn't it? The change that happens in people. But Pip, I want to ask you a thing here, because you were saying it comes around to the health conversation there, but you were saying that you grew up with lots of laughter in your family. And
yes.
So how did the laughter yoga practice change how you were with laughter? And so did it add more, or did it change your life in some way, other than, of course, changing other people's lives? But
well, as I said, it grabbed me by the shirt tails and didn't let go, and it's still holding on. And I had the opportunity to take laughter into the community, being the first person to do it in the state, and travel and get the exposure and expand it, train people. And when I was training, whilst I was using Madame Kataria's training manual, I would put in what I'd learned from my life experience and how it could apply and use people. Because I was brought up with a glass half full attitude. And I often say that P doesn't stand for Phillipa, it stands for Pollyanna, because I can always see the bright side. Like at the moment with the COVID, the coronavirus, and we'll come back to that. So from a very young age, the laughter was always part of my life. If I got into a situation, and I've got to tell you, as a younger woman, I was a very big girl. I was still big, but not as big as I used to be. I used to be quite a big girl.
Oh, really?
And my way of handling that was that I was always bright. I'd always, see, I still wear the purple and the bright colours, but my attitude, and I'd laugh a lot. If people said something that wasn't really thoughtful, we'll put it that way, I don't believe that people were, how can I put it? They weren't being nasty to me. Their own inadequacy of not knowing how to handle a situation meant their attitude. So if something happened, someone said, "Oh, look at that, your skirt's so short." And I said, "Yeah, isn't it great? It's a hot day and I'm the only one with a short skirt because my big bum's doing that, and you've got skinny legs, so your skirt's down low and now you're hot and I'm not." So I used it in my life without even knowing it. So that's why when the laughter came into my life to become a yoga person, a laughter teacher, it was just natural. And so I used it. And my father died when I was young. I was 14, the eldest of 3 girls, 14, 8 and 6. But Dad was one of 12, Mum was one of 10. So there were aunties and uncles and cousins and activity. And I knew Dad wasn't there and life was different, but it was still a good life.
Yeah.
Everyone around, sharing and laughing.
That's amazing, because it's that whole idea of we take what we have and what we get thrown at us and deal with it, you know, and just deal with it with the tools we have and so on. And you know, there are so many people who don't necessarily grow up with the laughter and the joy and the love and so on. And that's where they may come to laughter yoga, because they want to have that, or they want to bring that again because something stopped them from having that. Yeah. But you also, because you experienced some health challenges and you used laughter to get you through as well, didn't you?
Oh, definitely, definitely. I've had both knees replaced. You can't be a big girl and play sport, as I used to a lot, and not have damaged knees. And when I had them replaced, the second one is that I've got so many anecdotes. I don't have the research formally, but my anecdotal evidence that I've lived through. When I was having a knee replacement, I got to theatre and the staff, as you know, you had an operation where you go in and you're waiting. Yeah. And the anaesthetist came out and said, look, I'm terribly sorry, Phillipa, but we're going to have a bit of a delay here. We're not quite ready in theatre at this stage. And I said, not a problem. I'll just do some laughter yoga. And he said, what? I said, Hatha yoga. He said, oh, I don't know that type. My wife's a yoga instructor, but I've never heard about that. And so I said, oh, it's laughter. He said, well, how do you do it? So I remember lying there on the trolley and and he screwed up his face. And for 20 minutes, I laughed. Little laughs. Or a silent laugh. And I just laughed for 20 minutes.
Oh, brilliant.
And so when they were doing my, what do they call it? The OBS, the blood pressure and whatever else they do prior to theatre, the doctor looked at me and he said, that's extraordinary, because my blood pressure, even though I was going into theatre and you're normally uptight, was still right near the 120 over 78. I think it was 122 and 78, which is pretty darn good.
That is pretty good, yeah.
It was the laughter.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Now, I just put that aside. And I have to go now and say 3 years ago this month, I became a uterine cancer survivor. And I just don't say a cancer because it's very important that people know, because the endometrial cancers, unfortunately, get pushed aside by the breast and any other type of lung cancer or even heart. Yeah. And when I was told I had cancer, the doctor was quite stunned, because I said to him when he told me, and I said, so the upshot is that it's in my uterus and you'll give me a hysterectomy and take the uterus out. And he said, look, you probably live for 20 years. To which my daughter said, oh, really? I've got to look after her that long? True. And he said, so we'll get on to it. And it all happened from day one to the operation in 6 weeks. But when I was told the news, people said, you do realise how serious this is, Phillipa? It's no. I said, no. I said, I have a uterus that is cancerous and they're going to take it out and I'll be fine. I'm not sick. My cancer's not in me. It's just in the one spot. And I laughed even more. I laughed at anything. It was a wonderful excuse to watch all the... I Love Lucy's is my favourite. Do you know that show?
No, I don't.
American comedian. It's called I Love Lucy.
I'll
Go
look
to
it up.
YouTube. You must, and anyone that's listening to this or viewing it, I Love Lucy has got to have one of the best reputations for making people laugh. It's just fabulous. Anything that would make me laugh, so that when I did go into hospital and going through the procedure and coming out of it, it was fine.
Yeah. The thing is, you know, because it's like you're removing a part of you that's, you know, it's not really yours anymore because it's taken over by these cells that you don't really want in your body.
Exactly.
Yeah?
Exactly.
But again, you know, it's still removing a part of you and so on. So of course it took the time to grieve and sob a little bit on the way as we do here. Because it's, you know, it's not only about the laughter, but it's about the whole process of going through. It's a shock to get some sort of serious health diagnosis, isn't it? You know, no matter what, no matter how we deal with it, it's still a shock to our body, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
So,
and again, here we are since March the 15th in Australia and in Victoria, lockdown because of the coronavirus. And it's a catastrophe, but on the other hand, it's been a catalyst for people to realise they've got to do something more with their life. They can't go out and do things. People complain that they're not getting a hug, and I have to admit, I'm missing my hugs, you know. Could I have a hug?
A lot of people miss that.
Give me a hug, give me a hug. I want a hug, I want a hug. Hug, hug, hug. Thank you, lovely, lovely. Now can I get back on the chairs and thing, because I've got it set high. Sorry folks, 1 minute. Now the chair's moved.
That's okay. Don't sit next to the chair though.
Up until coronavirus, as I said, my club met every Saturday morning and we'd have a wonderful session. And my club, like so many others now, do it by Zoom.
Yeah.
And when you've got everyone's face on the Zoom and they can see the gallery, it's not the same, but it's pretty darn good.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Because I think also with Zoom, it just connects us with more people around the world, doesn't it? You know, if you think about it, we are so more able to also join these laughter clubs that we may not be able to get to on a normal basis because it's too far away or also. So I think there's a blessing in it. But again, you know, it's coming to terms with the changes as well, because what are we going to do? What are we going to do?
Well, I don't know what stage you are at the moment, but here in Victoria, being 1 hour away from Melbourne, we're still in stage 3, but stage 4, they've got a curfew from 6 o'clock at night, or was it 5? I've lost track. No, 8 at night till 5 in the morning. You can't go further than 2 kilometres, and only one person in a household's meant to go out. So it can be a bit daunting. And I don't know about you, Lottie, but I am busy at the moment because people want to have a Zoom.
Yeah.
And my corporate clients, I really feel that it's been the saving grace for some businesses. Yeah. People working from home, no interaction. I mean, it's one thing to have your partner, wife or husband, and for those that have got little kids, it's so difficult.
Yeah.
But when you're doing the Zoom with your workmates, and one I did last week, there were 5 of them from the one business, and they hadn't seen each other than a meeting. And you could, apparently at the meetings, they'd be doing things and looking at this and getting all stressed. But with the people that I'm doing those, the businesses, what happens is the person who set it up says, oh, we're having someone else join us now. And I get introduced as the laughter lady. So I can't have a miserable day because they all know me as the laughter lady.
But it's such a great way also to connect in with when people are maybe in different teams around the country. It's so much easier, or around the world even, it's so much easier to connect them, isn't it? And the laughter really does connect people, whether they, you know, think it's great or think that's a bit strange or whatever they think, because people are always going to think thoughts, aren't they? But it's just a really great way to loosen up and connect people. And that's also what teams report back, isn't it? That they weren't sure what to expect, but we do it the same way as if we were in person, just that the difference is that we're not in the same room. And that just makes a huge big difference, doesn't it? So yeah, I'm a little bit busy too, and I'm really pleased that you are.
And it's just fantastic to be able to help people. There was one group, there were 24 ladies, and they've got a networking group. They're all women in business, and they're all fabulous young women, 30, 40, 50 years old. The younger ones doing things that, you know, I didn't have the opportunity because in the day, and as you can see, I'm 21 and some years as opposed to your 21 and some months. In my day, it just didn't have.
We're pretty similar.
We didn't have the opportunity to do what they're doing, and they're high-powered, some of them, in their positions. But what we did is we came together for the laughter session, and yeah, we did it as a healthy thing, but we had to have vino on one side, and they were asked to bring their favourite morsel of food, because we did it late afternoon. And so everyone was holding up their plate, you know, just like you do when you're doing something on a Facebook picture. So they were all showing what they had and lifting up their glass. And it was the silliest, nicest, fun let your inner child out that I've ever done.
Oh, that is so nice. But that's what we create, isn't it? And you know, this is why it's so worth, even if we are experiencing, maybe I've heard a lot of people say, yeah, they may be busy, but there's a real drop in you know, the number of workshops or training, and so they're running, so they are thinking about what to do financially and so on. So that is an issue, but you know, at some point it will change. I'm pretty sure it will change no matter what. Because more businesses are interested.
Yes. Oh yes. Yeah. And do you have the opportunity to do that with people now, to take them through team building on the Zooms, etc.?
Yeah, it's a big thing of what I do and so on. And when lockdown first happened, I had a lot of bookings. that I was going into in April, May, June, July, and so on. And I was kind of like, oh my gosh, what are they going to do? And so on. And all of them, well, I think there was one of them who said, no, we need to cancel it for now because we have no idea what's going to happen. Because it was a Women's Institute group where they were quite senior ladies, and they just didn't know, But the rest of them just said, okay, let's bring it on to online workshops, and it just works. You know, it's I do prefer to be in person with people because it is a different dynamic. But you know what? It works. It really works well anyway. And it's just in our own minds if we think, no, that's not very good, or we can't do that. You know, we can. We really can. Yeah.
Well, I had the joy of doing one for an aged care facility, and because unfortunately there's a lot of illness and people succumbing to the virus in those facilities. And this was a facility where everyone had their own screen, so they could stream it into the screen. And that meant that I was there. It's just me on the all the whole time. But I couldn't see them. But that was okay because behind me, I put my green screen up. You're being privileged tonight. This is my office. And my daughter thinks it's terrible because I haven't got colour coordinated and I haven't got everything right. But
no, when I do have what you like around you, don't
you? We did it and it was wonderful. And I changed it, so I did photos of my laughter group, or through the screen. You know how you do it on the magic of doing those things. And they felt as if they were part of it and seeing me. And it was wonderful because these people are locked in their rooms. They're not outside their rooms, but they could laugh.
And even, you know, because the sessions I've been running since lockdown, the sessions I've been running online have been where it's been with the group. So I could interact with the group and with the group. But last week I did one, or 10 days ago or so, I did one where it was exactly what you were saying. And it was actually recorded, so the people in the company could watch it back and watch it and take part as much as they wanted. So I was doing all these exercises and I was saying, okay, are you ready? Yeah, let's do it. Okay, how are you feeling? And so on. And it was a little bit odd because there was no interaction whatsoever because you only have yourself on the screen, don't you?
Yeah. Maybe I'm a show off and it's okay because I know my craft and because I know what I'm doing over the years, and I'm learning because there's some wonderful people coming through, not just the people I trained years ago because I haven't done that much training of recent times, but the openness of society to accept the laughter yoga means that they're doing it differently and embracing it, taking it into schools, and being able to get the younger ones coming through, as you mentioned before. So when I'm doing it and there's no one else, I have fun.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. And you're absolutely right as well about, you know, when you know what you're doing, it's not a problem. It's just a different experience.
Yeah. Well, I did reorganize myself and I had one of my high kitchen stools in here behind me. And I sat on there, and for the aged care facility, we do the can-can. Do you do the can-can?
Oh, no.
So I say to people, now do that. Sit on the back of your chair, get your wiggle back, so you're right at the back there, hold on to the front of the chair, and then, just like we used to do, sitting down, you kick your legs. Do it with me. Ha. So they asked me, can we please do the can-can?
Oh,
because the ladies have to flinch their skirts and the men have to hide their eyes. Because
yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Love that.
Yes.
I haven't done that ever. So.
Oh, really?
Oh, I didn't know of it.
Well, I had the joy of being on a contract to do some work with people who all had disabilities, and a lot of them in their chairs. And so the physio would tell me she couldn't get them to sit there and lift. You know how they say now, lift your leg and put it down.
Yeah. And
we're going to do that 8 times. 8, 7, 6. And the people go, oh, this is so hard. It's awful. But if you do the can-can,
they're laugh at the same time, you don't think about it.
Yeah, they're doing exactly the same. Yes, absolutely.
And do you know what? It's great for senior groups where the people are often sat in chairs and not doing much activity and so on. I know it's changing and people are doing more activities and outdoor walking and so on, but there's still so many people who are just sat on chairs in a care home or at home or so. So that's a great one. I'll definitely adopt that one. So do you get paid properly for your work? Because it's also, I mean, we are professional people and we are providing a professional service, and no matter what, how much I would love to just give it away because it's, you know, heartwarming when people take it on. It's also a service that has a real value for people. So are you getting your business covered? And
Lotte, it's something that I worked out a long time ago, that it was my gift to be able to make people laugh that way. Can't tell the joke very well because I can never remember the punchline.
Oh, me neither.
Starting up Laughter Clubs Victoria, of which I'm so proud, because here we are nearly 20 years later and they're still going. And so many clubs
or some of the regulars from back then. I think that's amazing.
Oh, well, not just my club, but I'm talking about the ones around the state, and some from interstate are affiliated with it. That's my gift to the community. It's my pro bono work, and I'm happy to do. If I go to an aged care facility, quite often, it's because it's a little support group. If I was to go to a group such as I go to one group where there are carers who all have adult children with disabilities, well, it's a pleasure to help them do it. Or the people who are from the paraplegic group, and I go back to every 6 months and we do it, and I'm always inventing new things for them. That's happiness. My husband used to say, poor darling, it's probably what sent him to an early grave. He said, you know, this laughter therapy, your laughter industry, it's the most expensive hobby you've ever undertaken.
But you know what? I think all of us, when we've been doing it for so long and we know how to go about doing things and we know how to run a business and so we do charity work as well, pro bono like you call it, and we do paid work as well, because it's a balance, isn't it? And it's the good we can do with it. When we get paid, we can do a bit more good maybe, and then, you know, but it's got to be fair as well in terms of the work we put into it. And that's what it's about, isn't it? It is a fantastic tool that we're giving to people.
Exactly. Well, I do divide my time. I have my business, and even the name of my business is something that people look at and say, oh, really? Because it's called Live Life Laughing. For years, I'd say to people, as I leave people, I'd always say, live life laughing, and they'd look at me, and that obviously, when I got in the laughter industry, was a ready-made name that I'd had for many years. When I was working, and my business name then was called Get Noticed, because it was promotions, public relations, and staff training and development, which became later on special events, and it all came together. I would always say live life laughing, because I do firmly believe your number one asset is you. You have components of your life, but you've always got to have time to laugh. You've got time to be with your family. My husband and I had 47 and a half years together I got married when I was 10, you understand.
Of course, I was going to say, you must have been a child bride, definitely.
But, you know, we still had one holiday a year. We'd go away, just the two of us, not our daughter, who's an only child. And we'd always set time aside to do things with laughter.
Oh,
and,
brilliant.
you know, if he gave me the irrits, we'd laugh. I'd always laugh, which drove him nuts.
But you know what? This is the thing. People who laugh together stay together, don't they? Yeah. So your daughter laughs as well, doesn't she?
She thinks her mother's nuts.
I thought you trained her.
No,
you know what?
She has been very good. When I've gone and done my corporate bookings and training over the years, and you mentioned before, how do I monetize on that? Yes, it is a business where I go in to do staff training development or speaking at conferences and conventions, and I have no difficulty in asking for a fee for that. I travel.
You've been in business for a long time, and you know the value of your work and so on.
Yes. But sometimes you can see there's a need, and I went into a small business 2 years ago now, and they were struggling. Their staff just wasn't coming together. The person who owned the business wasn't well. First of all, I taught her how to laugh, but then we went and we did the staff training, and the demographics there was very much a European culture for one side of the staff, and the other, there were the young brash ones coming in, a new wave coming through, and they didn't get together. By introducing the laughter, the turnaround in that company was fabulous. So it was almost the same good feeling as when I do the work for the laughter clubs, because you know you've helped someone, you've put more laughter into their life, and that's what it's all about. Anyone who gets involved in this industry is a good person.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. Do you know, I can't believe how time has flown here. It's already 11 o'clock. I know we start a little bit later, but you know, just to, because you're a little bit later than I am. It's only 11 o'clock here in the UK in the morning. But I wanted to, because I really would like you to leave people with something to just take away. And one of the things I really liked you saying was that thing about you, the most important. And so maybe something along that, but I'll leave it to you. What would you like people to really just be left with here at the end?
Lottie, I've travelled the world giving the talk, and it's something that hopefully one day we will laugh together in person when I'm on a speaking tour with it. And my topic is, your number one asset is you. You know, the way that you handle yourself in life. All life is balance. And when you hear the modern woman who does it all and how she has to juggle everything, I do believe that you need to take stock of yourself. Don't take yourself too seriously. Laugh at yourself. And if life gives you lemons, make lemonade. You can turn anything good. As I said, coronavirus pandemic is a catastrophe, but it's been the catalyst for so many of my friends who've just checked on me, being that I'm on my own. They wanted to know, am I okay? And in turn, do you remember the little black book? Now, people have their contacts in their phone. I've still got my little black book. And it's an address book, right? With people's names and numbers in it.
Oh, that's so nice.
And what I'm doing during the pandemic is every day, just 2 calls. And I'm going through the book, and I tick off every 9th person. So I'm now coming back through the book the 2nd time, picking up and saying, hi, how are you? Just checking in. Someone I hadn't spoken to for 10 years. And like that, we're in touch.
That is so lovely. Do you not think people jump when they hear the phone ring? Like, whoa! Because we're not used to the phone ringing, are we? We're used to email and messages. Like, whoa, what's that sound? But that is so lovely. I love that. And I love that you actually have a phone book, a little black book. I love that.
Some of those numbers are there, go back 30 years. Wow. You know, we did things together. People who I met when I first started in the laughter industry, who, because of life getting fast, haven't spoken to. I've had phone calls from people wanting to know what's the latest trend. There are so many fabulous exponents of it these days.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of finding the person that you can identify with that has the same outlook as you do. And I'm a very strong and firm believer, you've got to walk your talk. So even if I'm miserable, I get up in the morning and I tell people the first thing I do is I look in the mirror when I've been to what one does in the morning. And as I'm standing washing my hands, looking in the mirror, I say, "Hi, gorgeous," because it can only get better after that. For the men, they need to say, "Hi, handsome."
Oh, brilliant, brilliant,
And
brilliant. And
you
you know
just
what?
laugh.
It's very similar to what I do, because the first thing I do before fully waking up, I suppose, before opening my eyes, is either say it or mentally say thank you, because you know you woke up, didn't you? And then I do that when I go to the bathroom, as you do first thing in the morning. Many people do that. Yeah. And at that time it may not be real, but you know, by the time I'm done, I'm like, yay, because sometimes it's like, okay, thank you.
Well, I don't get down. I get frustrated that I haven't done more with myself. And I must admit, I can't do what I used to do at 21, which was, you know, stay up and get 3 and 4 hours sleep. And I find that I laugh more. I make an effort, and it works.
And I think that's a really important thing, isn't it? That whole thing about valuing ourselves and you know, make the best of it and do what we can. You know, we can only do our best, can't we?
What do Nike say? Just do it.
Just do it. Yeah, love that. It's my favorite quote or slogan. Yeah. So yeah, just do it.
Mine has been for many years, live life laughing. It's your choice. Something goes wrong, Lottie, how do you look at it? Someone hit my car. I was stationary in a car and they hit me. And everyone came over and he apologised and everyone's saying he did, and they're getting really uptight in our house. I said, I'm absolutely delighted because he's hit me where I had a dint before that I didn't get out because it was going to cost me money and I didn't want to. And he's hit me right on top of that dint. And now, and the woman just shook her head and walked away.
But it is, like you say, when you get lemons, make lemon juice. Yeah, see the positive things.
And
so
we're so blessed.
Such a fantastic spirit with, you know, we all have our stories, what we've been through and so on, and how we cope with it is what's so amazing and so different and yet so similar and so on. And I think we're definitely laughter sisters in this life.
Yes.
A lot of what you talk about resonates so much with me. So Pip, thank you so much for connecting.
It's been my pleasure, Lottie. I hope we get to chat again another time.
Oh, we will.
And just keep smiling and live life laughing.
Oh, thank you. And you too. And have a really lovely evening. So thank you so much, Pip. And I'll speak to you soon.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.